My name is Luis Martinez. I'm from Oaxaca, Mexico. I'm from a very small community in the mountains. So we are Zapotec. We're Dishta people. So I want to tell you what our vision is regarding corn. Like when I was a little kid, my grandma used to do a lot of stuff with corn. My first years that I remember going inside the milpa, where we have the corn, the calabaza, the frijoles, the beans, and just playing with that. Those were kind of like my toys. So that's my first memory of me and corn, like trying to eat the corn stalk, and getting all that stuff in my mouth, and my mom like screaming at me like, "Don't do that," So we are people that depending on the corn in that context that my community was very isolated back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. So our relationship with everything that grew up, it was very tight because we didn't have a lot of like access to like super like industrial products, like milk that it came like in box and flour. Even right now, I go back, like people still trying to figure out how to eat like more bread because we never really had it growing up. So our system weren't like made for that. So growing as a kid in Oaxaca, especially in Loxicha, it was a lot of fun, and being able to see all these different type of corn, it was amazing. Back then, I didn't understand it because for me it was a lot of hard work where I just wanted to play with my friends. I wanted to go to the river. I never really like focused on the amazing things that I have in front of me. Growing up, when I came to the United States, I first came as a farm worker. So working with other people, and creating that big bounding that I had since I was a kid. But I never really like work on it until I came here and I work from 7 in the morning to like 5 p.m. And then I went to this house with another 10 people and we basically just share stories and make jokes and eating from cans. That's crazy, right? Because it was like you like pick up all the vegetables, you put it in a box, people come and pick them up, but you don't need any of that. Everything goes away, everything is taken by people, and then you have to go back to this trailer when you share the space for with at least 9 to 12 people, and then you have to go to the store that sometimes the owner of the farm owns, and then you buy from them, and then you basically give them their money back. And what they have there, cans, tortillas that are made with corn that is not good, a corn that probably it was growing in Mexico, then it was bringing here, or it was growing in Kansas, and then they made tortillas with that, and those tortillas have at least 12, 20 different kind of industrial and chemical stuff. When back home, the only three things that we use it was water, it was cal, limestone, like and just the corn. So for us, that was the way to make it. Also, ashes was something that we use it in, depending on what the dishes were. So being in California as a farm worker, it kind of teach me a lot of like, how I needed to be like kind of like stone to keep who I was and where I feel myself going. And then always corn was everywhere. I was picking it up. Probably we didn't have the best kind of like tortillas, but that what we had. So I moved around in the United States a lot, but it was always corn wasn't something. Finally, I made it to Asheville, and I became a citizen in 2018. And finally, I was able to go back to Mexico after living here for 15 years. So guess what? Corn was in the past and was in the present, right? So I went back to my town, and the first thing that I saw my dad doing it was actually putting corn down for the next season, And I kind of like go back and did that, and it was something that it kind of like initiated something in my brain because for a while, like I work in different kind of like Italians, French, American new style, and trying to be like, like what was the next step, and trying to copy that food that came from overseas when I was not really seeing where my food was, that it was not better. It was different, but it was who I was. That was how I grew up. So, I kind of like, I was like, what I'm doing? What exactly I'm doing? Corn is there. And talking to my dad, like we started to like do a little bit of like research about how much people was actually growing corn in Loxicha. And we figured out that there were just 5 families. From the 367 families that live in my town, just 5 families were growing around corn. That's crazy, right? And we kind of like call ourselves people of corn, but we don't grow corn. We buy it from somewhere. We buy it from the Mexican store called Conasupo, that they get all the corn coming from the United States, specifically like Kansas. So we are not even buying corn that is Mexican. We're buying corn that comes from America, from the United States, and corn that has been like modified, and it's like really toxic. And this go back in like to the 90s when we have the big NAFTA thing. And I remember when I was a kid, I remember like at nights you could hear trucks around the town, going. And I was a kid and I was like, is there a party or something going on? Because they like having a truck in Loxicha in the 90s, you were rich, you had money. And I was like, who is here? And my dad and a lot of my people, later on explained that what they were doing, they're part of the government. And what they did, they were having bags and a person in the back of the truck, and they were throwing seeds when they were like putting down other seeds. So like that, they contaminated old seeds. So these bad seeds, they were taking over old seeds, and that's how they did it. So it's been taking over 20 years to kind of like going back and try to clean what they did. And the saddest part of this is that a lot of these people were also Zapotecs. You know, having to deal with that kind of stuff, like how can you be that stubborn, just and be worried about just money and thinking that you really screw up your own people? you know Now a lot of young people, they don't want to grow corn and they don't want to taste of corn, because there's been a movement of people like me and different regions in Oaxaca when we feel that corn is where we come from and we cannot walk away from that. Like sin maíz no hay país, that translates without corn there is no country. And that's one of the important things now. Like people are starting to go back to not just rescue, but also doing that connection with who we are, and that connection of like thinking that corn is not just what feeds us. Corn is our mother, corn is our father, corn is our grandfather or grandmother. It's in our DNA. And also like nixtamalized corn is revolutionary. It's something where people is like, oh well, like what is a good example of like Zapata and Gloxicha people have been doing besides surviving? Nixtamalizing. That's a way to like surviving. We've been keeping it for 100 years. It's been changing because right now, like I said, a lot of young people don't see value in that. But what I'm trying to do, me and a bunch of other people in different places in Mexico, but Oaxaca has one of those really connections with corn, where we have over 37 different varieties that we have in our territory. So in Oaxaca, we're 16 different groups of people, right? That go from Mixtecos, Zapotecos, Huaves, Triges, Tojolabales. There's many. So for us, the common love, it's corn. And right now, corn is in a position that we are recovering. Like I said, sin maíz no hay país. And we're fighting hard, not just to make it like another product where people can buy it. No, we have to reclaim it, but we have to reclaim it in a good way, in a way that is respectful, and that we also create a local economy, because that's the other thing. When my people and other people from different communities in Oaxaca buy from the government stores, they buy the worst of the worst. So in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of effort in order to create seed banks that preserve all those seeds, but also keep it with responsibility and also keep it in a way that we can see to the future because climate change is very real, people, and it's changing a lot of stuff everywhere. And there is a lot of production, because a lot of people doesn't want to work on growing stuff in my country, that a lot of people think that in the next 10 years there's going to be a lot of corn that disappear. So we all trying to work in order to make efforts to save at least a little bit of the past in order to preserve the future. Because if you don't do it right now, then it's going to disappear. So part of my job and part of the thing that I do with Tequio and with corn is doing that. Just not thinking about me and the money, thinking about how we can create a different source of economy, for us, where we are the ones who take the wheels of everything, where we can decide how we can grow it, how we can sell it. And so far, it's been very hard dealing with two countries. Can you imagine making taxes in the United States? Now imagine import corn from Mexico. It's very complicated, and you deal with a lot of facts that you don't live down there, you will never understand. But so far, we're still doing it. I always tell people that it's hard, but going down there and see how, we're doing a little change in the 12 communities where we work and see that the corn is becoming again something that we can be proud of it. We've always been proud of it, but now more than ever with recoverment, it's amazing. So if you like tortillas and if you like corn, it's always important to see where your corn is coming from. There is a lot of really beautiful varieties of corn here in the United States. And I love to see that now there is a big movement here and down there that we start to share paths and share knowledge. And that's one of the cool things about it. And I hope that you, when go back home and you eat corn and sweet corn, think about it twice. So think about how that corn comes to your table. And also think about how, we all part of this and we need to work together in order to make a change and also make that corn, it becomes a thing forever. That's it.